The desert wind whispered secrets, carrying grains of sand that had once borne witness to the grandeur of ancient Egypt. The Great Pyramid of Giza loomed in the distance, its enigmatic silhouette a beacon of mysteries long buried. Dr. Layla Hassan stood at the edge of the excavation site, her heart pounding with a mix of excitement and trepidation. "This is it," she whispered, clutching the edges of a worn leather journal. The journal, passed down through her family, was said to contain cryptic notes from an ancestor who had worked as a scribe during the construction of the pyramid. Beside her, Dr. Michael Carter, an astrophysicist, studied the schematics on a tablet. "If the radar scans are correct, the chamber lies directly below the pyramid. And if your ancestors' notes are accurate." "They are," Layla interrupted firmly. "The pyramid is more than a tomb. Something else." Michael raised an eyebrow but didn't argue. He had learned not to underestimate Layla's instincts. The excavation site buzzed with activity. Engineers, archaeologists, and technicians worked in concert, drilling into the hard limestone bedrock beneath the pyramid. Layla's team had been granted special clearance by the Egyptian Antiquities Authority under the guise of restoration efforts. In truth, the project was funded by a secretive global think tank called the Helios Foundation. "Careful. This equipment is irreplaceable," Tarek, the site's logistics manager, barked at a technician who was unloading a delicate laser drill. As the drill hummed to life, Layla knelt beside Michael, who was monitoring the readings from a seismic scanner. "The chamber should be 30 meters down," he said, pointing to the screen. "Whatever's down there, it's big, and it's shielded." "Shielded?" Layla asked, frowning. Michael nodded. "Electromagnetic interference. It's like the pyramid itself is protecting it." Layla's curiosity deepened. Could the legends of gods descending from the heavens have a basis in reality? After hours of painstaking work, the drill broke through the final layer of rock. A wave of cool air rushed out of the shaft, carrying with it a faint hum, like the resonance of a massive tuning fork. Tarek secured a rope ladder and tested its stability. "Safe," he said, "but it's dark as hell down there." Layla was the first to descend, her flashlight cutting through the inky blackness. As her boots touched the chamber floor, she gasped. The walls were lined with intricate carvings, symbols that looked like a hybrid of ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs and something entirely alien. Michael joined her moments later. What is this?" he whispered, his voice echoing. In the center of the chamber stood a monolithic structure, a gleaming black obelisk pulsating with faint blue light. Strange, glowing conduits snaked out from its base, disappearing into the surrounding walls. Layla approached the obelisk, her hand trembling as she reached out to touch its surface. The moment her fingers made contact, the chamber lit up, and the carvings on the walls began to move, rearranging themselves into a cohesive pattern. "Layla, step back," Michael shouted, but it was too late. Layla's mind was flooded with images. She saw the Giza Plateau as it had been thousands of years ago, a bustling construction site. But the workers were not alone. Towering, luminous beings walked among them, their elongated forms shimmering like liquid metal. They communicated without words, their gestures creating pulses of light that carried meaning. The beings directed the construction of the pyramid, embedding crystalline devices within its stones. The devices hummed with power, forming a grid that extended across the earth. The pyramid was not a tomb but a beacon, a conduit for energy and communication with the stars. The vision shifted. Layla saw the beings in their true form, massive, starship-like entities orbiting the earth. They observed humanity, their intentions inscrutable. But then something changed. The beings grew distant, their light fading as if they had fallen into dormancy. Layla snapped back to reality, gasping for air. She stumbled backward, clutching her head. "Layla, are you okay?" Michael rushed to her side. "I saw them," she whispered. "The gods of Egypt. They weren't gods. They were aliens." As Layla's team studied the obelisk, strange phenomena began to occur. The temperature in the chamber dropped, and a low-frequency hum vibrated through the air, making it hard to think. "Layla, the obelisk is drawing power from somewhere," Michael said, his voice tight with concern. if we don't shut it down. No, Layla interrupted. We need to understand it first. This could be the greatest discovery in human history. But before they could decide, the obelisk emitted a piercing tone. The conduits on the walls flared to life, projecting holographic images into the chamber. The images showed Earth, but not as it appeared today. The continents were subtly different, as if viewed from a time before recorded history. Is it mapping the past? Tarek asked, awestruck. No, Layla said, her voice trembling. It's broadcasting. Above the Giza Plateau, the sky darkened unnaturally. Satellites in low Earth orbit began to fail, their instruments overloaded by electromagnetic interference. Across the globe, observatories reported a sudden influx of signals from deep space, signals originating from a distant star system. Michael's face turned pale as he analyzed the data streaming in. Layla, the obelisk isn't just broadcasting. It's waking something up. Layla's heart sank. The vision she had seen suggested that the gods had left, but not entirely. Had they been dormant, waiting for a signal to return? We need to shut it down, Tarek urged. But Layla hesitated. What if activating the obelisk was the key to understanding humanity's true origins? The team debated furiously, but their decision was made for them when the obelisk began to emit a beam of light that shot straight through the pyramid, piercing the sky. Around the world, ancient sites with similar structures, Stonehenge, Teotihuacan, the Moai of Easter Island, responded, their latent technology awakening. Governments scrambled to contain the news, but leaks spread like wildfire. Conspiracy theories exploded across the internet, ranging from prophecies of doom to hopes for contact with benevolent extraterrestrials. Meanwhile, Layla and her team worked tirelessly in the chamber. The obelisk is drawing energy from the Earth's magnetic field, Michael said. If we overload it, we might be able to shut it down. Layla nodded reluctantly. Do it. As Tarek rigged an improvised EMP device, Layla couldn't shake the feeling that they were meddling with forces beyond their comprehension. The EMP worked, temporarily. The obelisk's light dimmed, and the chamber fell silent. But before the team could celebrate, the ground trembled. Above, the sky was torn asunder by a massive craft descending from orbit. It was shaped like a pyramid, its surface covered in the same glowing conduits as the obelisk. The craft hovered above the Great Pyramid, its presence undeniable. Around the world, panic erupted as the implications became clear. The gods were returning. Layla and her team rushed to the surface, staring in awe and terror as the craft began to emit a rhythmic pulse. It was scanning, searching. For what? Michael whispered. Layla clenched her fists. For us. As the craft's pulse intensified, Layla's vision from the obelisk returned to her mind. The beings were not gods, but they were not malevolent either. They were observers, perhaps even caretakers, but something had gone wrong. Their dormancy had turned into abandonment, leaving humanity to evolve on its own. But now they were back, and their intentions were unclear. The obelisk flared to life once more, projecting a beam of light toward the craft. For a moment, the two seemed to communicate, their energies intertwining. Then, the craft emitted a blinding flash, and everything went dark. When Layla awoke, she was lying on the sand, the craft gone. The pyramid and the obelisk were silent, their lights extinguished. Her team was safe but shaken. In the following days, strange phenomena began to occur. People across the globe reported vivid dreams of the past, of golden beings and ancient civilizations. Scientists discovered subtle changes in the Earth's magnetic field, as if it had been recalibrated. Layla knew their discovery was only the beginning. The obelisk and its creators had left humanity with more questions than answers. But one thing was certain. The gods of old were not done with Earth, and Layla would be there to uncover the truth. The world had changed since the Great Pyramid lit up the sky. Though the craft had vanished without a trace, its brief arrival left an indelible mark. Humanity, now aware of extraterrestrial beings, was split between hope and fear. Governments scrambled to conceal the truth, but the footage of the event had gone viral, sparking a new era of curiosity and paranoia. For Dr. Layla Hassan, The days following the encounter were a blur of interviews, debriefings, and sleepless nights. She had become the reluctant face of the discovery, her name synonymous with the enigmatic Watchers, as the beings were now called. But the mystery was far from over. Layla sat in her Cairo apartment, surrounded by stacks of papers, artifacts, and glowing screens. She stared at a peculiar symbol that had appeared in her dreams, a glyph resembling an eye surrounded by radiating lines. It felt familiar, yet alien, as if it were a key to something she couldn't yet grasp. Her tablet buzzed. It was Michael Carter. "Layla, you need to see this," he said, his face pale. "We've detected another signal." Layla's stomach tightened. "From the obelisk?" "No," Michael said. "From Antarctica." A week later, Layla found herself aboard a research vessel cutting through the icy waters of the Southern Ocean. Funded by the Helios Foundation, the expedition included scientists, engineers, and even military personnel. The team was following a signal nearly identical to the one emitted by the obelisk but originating from beneath the Antarctic ice sheet. As they neared the coordinates, the auroras above intensified, shimmering in unnatural patterns. "It's like the sky is alive," Tarek murmured, his breath visible in the frigid air. Layla felt it too, a tingling in her skin, a low hum in her bones. Whatever lay beneath the ice was calling to them. Using advanced drilling equipment, the team bored through kilometers of ice, revealing a vast cavern illuminated by an eerie green glow. The walls were covered in crystalline formations that refracted the light, creating a kaleidoscope of colors. At the center of the cavern stood a structure, another obelisk larger and more elaborate than the one beneath Giza. Its surface was etched with the same alien Egyptian hybrid glyphs, but these pulsed with energy, as if alive. Michael ran a handheld scanner over the obelisk. "It's active," he said, "and it's broadcasting a different frequency." "What's it saying?" Layla asked. Michael frowned. "It's not just a signal. It's a code, a sequence, like it's waiting for a response." Back at their temporary base, the team worked tirelessly to decipher the signal. Layla's mind raced as she cross-referenced the glyphs with her ancestors' journal. "It's a star map," she realized, pointing to a cluster of symbols. The Watchers were mapping the galaxy. Tarek's eyes widened. "Are you saying they left a trail? Like breadcrumbs?" Layla nodded. "And this obelisk is pointing to the next location." Michael leaned forward, his expression grave. "But why now? Why leave a trail if they're already watching us?" Layla didn't have an answer. The Watchers had awakened for a reason, but whether it was to guide humanity or to judge them remained unclear. As the team worked, the obelisk began to hum louder. The crystalline formations on the cavern walls started to vibrate, and the temperature plummeted. "It's responding to us," Michael said, his voice tinged with awe. Before they could act, the obelisk projected a beam of light into the cavern's ceiling, melting the ice above. The beam pierced the atmosphere, visible from space, and triggered a response. A low, thunderous sound that reverberated through the earth. Above them, the auroras shifted, forming patterns that resembled the glyphs on the obelisk. "It's calling them again," Layla said, her voice trembling. "The Watchers." The response was immediate. Satellites detected a massive object approaching Earth, its trajectory aimed directly at Antarctica. This time, there was no denying it. The Watchers were returning. The team scrambled to evacuate, but Layla refused to leave. "We need to understand them," she said. "This is our chance." As the craft descended, its sheer size became apparent. It was larger than any terrestrial structure, a floating city of light and shadow. It hovered above the ice, its surface shifting like liquid metal. The obelisk emitted a final pulse, and the craft responded by projecting a holographic figure into the cavern. The figure was humanoid but translucent, its features ever-changing. "Humans," it said in a voice that resonated directly in their minds. "You have awakened us." The being introduced itself as a sentinel, one of many who had observed Earth for millennia. Its purpose was not to conquer but to assess. The obelisks were part of a network designed to monitor humanity's progress and determine their readiness for greater cosmic integration. "Your species is at a crossroads," the sentinel said. You have unlocked great potential but tread dangerously close to destruction. Layla stepped forward, her voice steady despite her fear. Why did you leave us? Why not guide us? The sentinel's form flickered, as if in contemplation. To guide is to control. To abandon is to test. We sought to observe if you could rise above your instincts. And have we? Layla asked. The sentinel's gaze lingered on her. That remains to be seen. The sentinel revealed that the obelisks contained keys to unlocking dormant technologies, starships, energy sources, and tools for interstellar travel. But these gifts came with a warning. They could be used to elevate humanity or to destroy it. The choice is yours, the sentinel said. But know this, you are not alone in the galaxy. Others will come, and not all will be as patient. The hologram faded, and the craft ascended into the sky, vanishing as abruptly as it had appeared. The obelisk in the cavern dimmed, its purpose fulfilled. Layla stared at the empty space where the sentinel had stood. We're not ready for this, she said softly. Michael placed a hand on her shoulder. Maybe not yet, but we have to try. News of the Antarctic event spread rapidly. Governments, corporations, and private entities raced to exploit the obelisks, sparking a new era of discovery and conflict. Some saw the technology as a path to salvation, while others viewed it as a weapon of ultimate power. Layla and her team, now fugitives from those who sought to control the obelisks, went underground. They dedicated themselves to uncovering the remaining obelisks and decoding their secrets, determined to ensure that humanity used the Watcher's gifts wisely. But as they delved deeper, they discovered a darker truth. The obelisks were not merely tools. They were also warnings, and something far more dangerous was already on its way. The days following the Antarctic encounter were a blur of chaos and revelations. The obelisks around the world, long dormant, began to activate in unison. Each emitted a pulse that shook the Earth's electromagnetic field, altering weather patterns and triggering unprecedented seismic activity. For Dr. Layla Hassan and her team, the stakes had never been higher. Humanity was no longer alone, and the Watcher's promise of an impending cosmic reckoning loomed closer. Layla stood in the dimly lit bunker, staring at a holographic map projected by Michael's modified scanner. The network of obelisks was more intricate than they had imagined, each aligned with major celestial events and constellations. The Antarctic obelisk's activation had sent a signal through the network, triggering a countdown. Tarek adjusted his glasses, frowning at the display. If this is correct, the final obelisk is somewhere in the Amazon. It's the central node. If we can reach it, we might be able to stop the chain reaction. Or accelerate it, Michael muttered. Layla's voice cut through the tension. We don't have a choice. If we don't act, this world will be torn apart. The trek to the Amazon was fraught with peril. The team, now hunted by governments and shadow organizations vying for control of the obelisks, relied on a network of allies to evade capture. Their plane landed in a remote village, where they were greeted by an indigenous guide named Kale, whose tribe had guarded the rumored site for centuries. Kale led them deep into the jungle, his movements swift and confident despite the dense foliage. The obelisk is not just a monument, he explained in halting English. It is a guardian. My people call it the heart of the sky. As they neared the site, the jungle seemed to come alive. The air grew heavy with energy, and strange symbols glowed faintly on the trees and rocks, as if the very earth was awakening. At the heart of the jungle stood the final obelisk. Unlike its counterparts, this one was colossal, reaching high into the canopy. Its surface was covered in glyphs that pulsed with a rhythm like a heartbeat. Layla placed her hand on the obelisk, feeling a surge of warmth. It's alive, she whispered. Michael's scanner beeped furiously. The signal is stabilizing. This obelisk is transmitting directly into deep space. Kale stepped forward, his expression grave. You must decide. The obelisk will summon the Watchers or repel them. Layla turned to him, her voice shaking. How? Kale pointed to a central panel on the obelisk. The glyphs are a code. One summons, the other seals. The team erupted into argument. Michael, ever the pragmatist, argued for sealing the obelisks. We've seen what their technology can do. We're not ready for this kind of power. Tarek, however, believed the Watchers could guide humanity. If we seal them out, we'll never evolve. We'll stagnate. Layla remained silent, her mind racing. The Sentinel's words echoed in her ears. Others will come, and not all will be as patient. Kale watched them, his expression unreadable. The decision must be unanimous, he said. Once the choice is made, it cannot be undone. Before a consensus could be reached, the obelisk emitted a deafening hum. The jungle vibrated, and a beam of light shot into the sky. The countdown had reached 0. A rift opened in the atmosphere, revealing a fleet of Watcher ships. They descended slowly, their presence a blend of majesty and menace. The largest craft hovered above the obelisk, projecting a figure identical to the Sentinel they had encountered in Antarctica. You have chosen neither, the Sentinel said, its voice a mixture of disappointment and curiosity. The decision is no longer yours. The obelisk pulsed violently, its glyphs shifting into an unreadable pattern. The ground beneath them cracked, and a surge of energy rippled outward, affecting the entire planet. Across the globe, the activated obelisks projected massive energy fields. Cities went dark as power grids failed, and the Earth's magnetic field began to destabilize. The Watcher's fleet moved into position, their intentions unclear. The Sentinel addressed the team directly. Your species has reached the tipping point. The obelisks were designed to judge not by us but by the creators who came before. You have unlocked their power, and now the reckoning begins. Layla stepped forward, desperation in her voice. We can change. Give us a chance to prove ourselves. The Sentinel's form flickered. Prove it now. Layla turned to her team. We need to send a countersignal. If the obelisks are broadcasting, there must be a way to interrupt it. Michael hesitated. If we fail, it could accelerate the destruction. If we do nothing, we're doomed anyway, Tarek countered. Working frantically, they used Michael's scanner and Kale's knowledge of the glyphs to devise a makeshift disruption. Layla activated the obelisk's control panel, her hands trembling as she input the code. The obelisk shuddered, and for a moment, the signal faltered. The Watcher's fleet paused, their ships hovering silently. But the Sentinel remained. You have delayed the inevitable, it said, but the test is far from over. The energy fields around the obelisks began to stabilize. The ships retreated slightly, their lights dimming. The Sentinel's voice softened. Your defiance is noted. We will observe further. But know this, others will not be as forgiving. The fleet ascended, disappearing into the rift as quickly as they had come. The obelisks dimmed, their glyphs returning to a dormant state. The jungle grew quiet, the air heavy with the weight of what had transpired. Kale turned to Layla, his eyes filled with both relief and warning. The Watchers have spared us, for now, but they will return. Back at their base, Layla addressed the team. We've been given time, but not forgiveness. The obelisks are a part of our world now, and we need to understand them before anyone else can exploit them. Michael nodded. If we can decode their full potential, maybe we can prepare for what's coming. Tarek added, and maybe we can prove to the Watchers and ourselves that humanity is worth saving. Layla glanced at the map of obelisks, her resolve hardening. This isn't the end. It's just the beginning. Months after the Antarctic obelisk's activation and the subsequent retreat of the Watchers, humanity was still grappling with the aftermath. Governments had declared a global state of emergency, and obelisks around the world were now under military control. Scientific communities were split, with some supporting cautious exploration and others warning against meddling with forces beyond human comprehension. For Dr. Layla Hassan and her team, the respite was bittersweet. While the Watchers had retreated, their ominous warnings still loomed. Others would come, and humanity would not be ready. In a hidden underground facility somewhere in the Sahara, Layla's team worked tirelessly. With the help of Kale's tribal knowledge and Michael's technological ingenuity, they had begun to decipher the true purpose of the obelisks. These aren't just monitoring stations, Michael said, pointing at a 3D projection of interconnected obelisk glyphs. They're weapons. Layla's heart sank. Weapons for what? To terraform, Tarek said, his voice grim. The obelisks can reshape planetary conditions, climate, atmosphere, even the magnetic field. If the Watchers decide we failed their test, they could reset Earth to suit their needs. Or to suit the needs of someone else, Layla murmured. The idea was terrifying. The obelisks weren't just tools. They were potential instruments of extinction. The team's fears were confirmed when Michael intercepted a signal from deep space. Unlike the Watchers' refined communication, this signal was chaotic, a cacophony of noise and distortion. But the meaning was clear. They're coming, Michael said, his face pale. Another fleet, bigger, and they're not Watchers. The signal carried with it a single, chilling phrase repeated in an alien language that Kale instinctively understood. The Harvesters. The Harvester fleet arrived in the solar system weeks later, detected by every major observatory on Earth. Unlike the Watchers, who had descended with an air of observation and judgment, the Harvesters brought chaos. Their ships were massive, grotesque constructs, appearing almost organic, and their approach disrupted Earth's communications and satellite systems. As the fleet neared, the dormant obelisks began to hum with renewed energy. The symbols on their surfaces shifted, aligning into what Tarek called a defensive array. They're waking up, Tarek said, staring at the glowing glyphs. The obelisks are responding to the threat. But will they protect us or the planet? Layla asked. The distinction was critical. If the obelisks prioritized Earth's preservation over humanity's survival, it could mean their end. The team realized they had one chance: to reactivate the obelisk network and reprogram its primary directive. If they could align the obelisks to defend humanity specifically, they might stand a chance against the Harvesters. We're talking about rewriting alien code thousands of years old, Michael said, pacing the control room. This is insane. It's the only way, Layla replied. We either take control of the obelisks, or we let the Harvesters decide our fate. Kale stepped forward, holding a piece of his tribe's sacred artifact, a small crystal shard that resonated with the obelisk glyphs. My ancestors spoke of this shard as the key of the sky. I believe it can unlock the obelisk's true power. The team traveled to the Giza Plateau, where the Great Pyramid still housed the largest obelisk node. Kale placed the shard into a depression at the base of the obelisk. The glyphs flared to life, and a beam of energy shot skyward, connecting to other obelisks around the world. The obelisks began to vibrate, their energy forming a protective grid over the planet. But the process was unstable. The Harvester's ships, now in orbit, started firing beams of energy at the grid, testing its strength. Layla worked furiously at the obelisk's control panel, entering the rewritten code they had devised. We need more time, she shouted as the ground trembled beneath them. Kale knelt beside her, chanting in his native tongue. The shard in the obelisk glowed brighter, stabilizing the grid momentarily. But the Harvester's assault intensified. The obelisk network retaliated. Beams of energy shot from the Earth's surface, striking the Harvester ships. Some ships were destroyed, but others adapted, their organic surfaces shifting to absorb the blasts. They're learning, Michael said. We can't hold them off forever. Layla looked at Kale. The shard, what happens if we overcharge it? Kale hesitated. It will destroy the obelisk. Maybe the whole network. And if we don't? She pressed. Kale's silence was answer enough. With a deep breath, Layla made the decision. Do it. Kale placed his hands on the shard and chanted louder. The obelisk's energy surged, spreading through the network. The grid intensified, becoming a blinding shield that enveloped the Earth. The Harvester's fleet fired relentlessly, but the shield held. One by one, their ships disintegrated, unable to withstand the obelisk network's combined power. As the last Harvester ship fell, the obelisks dimmed. The shard in Kale's hands shattered, and the Great Pyramid began to collapse. Run! Michael shouted. The team barely escaped as the pyramid crumbled into rubble. The obelisks were silent. The network had succeeded in repelling the Harvesters, but at great cost. Many obelisks around the world were now inert, their energy expended. In the ruins of the Great Pyramid, Layla knelt beside the remains of the obelisk. She picked up a fragment of the shard, its surface dull but warm. We won, she said softly. But for how long? Kale placed a hand on her shoulder. The Watchers will return, and so will others. This was only the beginning. Layla nodded, her resolve hardening. Then we'll be ready. Months later, Layla and her team regrouped in a hidden facility. With the obelisks largely dormant, they focused on deciphering the remaining glyphs and developing technologies based on the shard's energy. The world was forever changed. Humanity had faced extinction and survived, but the cost of their survival was still unfolding. New alliances were forming, but so were new threats. As Layla stared at a map of the galaxy projected on the wall, she couldn't shake the feeling that their greatest challenges were yet to come. "We've seen the harvesters," she said to her team, "but who else is out there?" In the silence that followed, the obelisk fragment on her desk pulsed faintly, as if answering her question. 6 months after the harvester fleet's defeat, Earth was caught in a precarious balance. The global recovery effort was fraught with divisions. Nations scrambled to claim obelisk sites, while others formed alliances to share knowledge. The obelisks, though mostly dormant, were not forgotten, and neither were the Watchers' warnings. Dr. Layla Hassan and her team had become reluctant custodians of humanity's fragile relationship with the alien technology. Hiding in their secure facility, they worked tirelessly to understand the shattered shard Kale had used to repel the harvesters. What they discovered next would change the course of history once again. Late one evening, Michael burst into the control room, clutching a scanning device. "Layla, the shard, it's responding to something." Layla rushed to his side. The shard, once dull and lifeless, now emitted faint pulses of light. The scanner showed a cascading sequence of energy spikes. "It's trying to communicate," Michael said. "But with what?" Tarek joined them, analyzing the readings. "The frequency, it matches a buried signal beneath one of the inert obelisks. This one's in Mongolia." Layla's eyes widened. "The obelisks aren't fully dormant. There's something deeper, something we missed." Kale entered the room, drawn by the shard's glow. He placed his hand over it, his expression unreadable. "It's a summons," he said. "Not for us, but for the true guardians." The team, now joined by a small group of trusted allies, made their way to Mongolia under the cover of darkness. They carried the shard in a protective casing, its glow intensifying the closer they got to the obelisk site. The Mongolian obelisk was half buried in a desolate plain. It was smaller than the others but intricately designed, its surface etched with glyphs they hadn't seen before. As they approached, the shard emitted a sharp pulse, and the glyphs on the obelisk flickered to life. The ground beneath them trembled, and a low hum filled the air. "It's waking up," Kale said, his voice steady. "Prepare yourselves." The obelisk emitted a beam of light, carving a circular portal into the ground. The team hesitated, but Kale stepped forward confidently. "We're meant to enter," he said. Descending into the portal, they found themselves in a vast underground chamber. The walls shimmered with alien symbols, and at the center stood a massive crystalline structure, pulsating with energy. Michael scanned the crystal. "This isn't just tech. It's alive." The shard in their possession began to resonate with the crystal. As they placed it on a pedestal at the base of the structure, the entire chamber lit up. A holographic figure appeared, a guardian. Unlike the Watchers, its form was less humanoid, its presence more ethereal. "You have awakened the first beacon," it said in a deep, resonant tone. "We are the guardians, protectors of balance. Why have you called us?" Layla stepped forward, her voice trembling. "We didn't know we were calling you, but we need your help. The Watchers judged us, the harvesters attacked us. We don't know who else is coming." The guardian's light flickered, its form shifting. "The Watchers and the harvesters are remnants of a fractured council. They once served balance but were corrupted by power. Your species stands at a crossroads." Tarek spoke up. "What do you mean, a crossroads?" The guardian's gaze seemed to pierce through him. "You must decide if you will be protectors of your world or conquerors of others. The obelisks can serve either purpose." The guardian informed them that the obelisks were part of a greater network that spanned the galaxy. If reactivated fully, Earth could become a hub for interstellar travel and communication, or a target for every power-hungry civilization. To prove yourselves worthy of the obelisk's power, the Guardian said, you must restore balance to this system. What does that mean? Layla asked. The Guardian gestured toward the crystal. The Harvester's defeat disrupted the equilibrium. You must reignite the core obelisks and align them with the stars. Michael frowned. And if we fail, the network will collapse, and your planet will be left vulnerable to destruction. The team returned to their base with a renewed sense of urgency. The Guardian had given them coordinates to 4 core obelisks that needed alignment. In the Amazon, Antarctica, Egypt, and a new, submerged site in the Pacific. Splitting into smaller groups, they worked to activate each site. Kale and Layla led the effort in the Amazon, while Michael and Tarek headed to the Pacific. Each site presented unique challenges, hostile environments, ancient traps, and, in some cases, interference from governments determined to control the technology. In Egypt, the site at Giza remained a focal point. While inert, the obelisk held secrets buried deep beneath its ruins. Layla believed this would be the key to final alignment. As progress was made, tensions within the team grew. Unbeknownst to Layla, a member of their group, working secretly for a rogue government, had been leaking their discoveries. When the team reached the Pacific site, they were ambushed by a militarized force seeking to claim the obelisk. Michael barely managed to activate the obelisk before the facility was overrun. As he and Tarek escaped, they realized the betrayal had jeopardized not just their mission, but Earth's survival. Back in Egypt, Layla and Kale worked tirelessly to decode the Giza obelisk's final glyphs. With time running out, the Guardian's holographic presence appeared once more. You have faced betrayal and chaos, it said. Now you must choose. Complete the alignment and risk drawing the attention of greater forces, or leave the network dormant and face inevitable decay. Kale turned to Layla. The obelisks are meant to connect us to something bigger. We can't turn away now. Layla nodded. We've come this far. We finish what we started. Using the shard's remnants, they activated the final obelisk. A beam of light shot into the sky, connecting with the others in a dazzling array that enveloped the planet. The obelisk network pulsed with renewed life, its energy resonating across the solar system. The Guardian reappeared, its form brighter than before. You have restored balance, it said. But the galaxy has taken notice. Allies will come. So will enemies. Prepare yourselves. The Guardian faded, leaving the team standing amidst the glowing obelisk. The sky above was filled with shimmering patterns, like a cosmic roadmap. Humanity was no longer isolated, no longer hidden. Layla stared at the stars, her mind racing with possibilities. This isn't the end, she said softly. It's the beginning of something much bigger. The activation of the obelisk network sent ripples through the galaxy, like a lighthouse cutting through the void. For a brief moment, Earth stood still as the world watched the pulsating sky. Within hours, telescopes captured something extraordinary. Vessels moving toward the solar system at near-light speeds. This time, it wasn't chaos or destruction that came first. It was an eerie, anticipatory silence. Layla Hassan and her team, now hailed as reluctant heroes, were summoned to a hastily arranged United Nations Council in Geneva. The leaders of Earth's most powerful nations demanded answers. What have you done? President Mikhailov of Russia growled, slamming his fist on the table. Layla remained calm. We've opened a door. The question is whether we're ready to step through it or barricade ourselves inside. Satellite feeds from the outer solar system displayed the approaching vessels in stunning detail. They were sleek and crystalline, with structures that seemed to shift and grow as if alive. Are they watchers? Harvesters? Asked a frazzled representative from Japan. Kale shook his head. No, there's something else. As the vessels neared Mars' orbit, the obelisk network responded again. Beams of light shot from key obelisk sites, Antarctica, Mongolia, Giza, and the Pacific converging on the incoming fleet. Moments later, a message materialized in Earth's atmosphere, visible like a hologram in the sky. The message was not text or sound, but a cascade of symbols and emotions. It resonated in the minds of anyone who looked upon it. The meaning became clear. We are the Senari. We come in peace. Shall we speak? The global council erupted into chaos. Some leaders, like those of China and the United States, advocated for immediate preparation for conflict. Others, including smaller nations, pushed for peaceful engagement. Layla was asked to address the assembly. She stood before the gathered leaders, her heart pounding. "We activated the obelisks knowing this day might come," she said. "The Senari are not the watchers or the harvesters. They've given us a chance to communicate before acting. That alone sets them apart." President Mikhailov was unmoved. "And what if it's a trick? What if they study us and then destroy us? Then hiding won't save us," Layla countered. "The obelisk network made us visible. The galaxy knows we're here now. We can't close the door we opened, but we can choose how to step through it." It was decided. A single obelisk would be used to send humanity's response. Kale, Layla, Michael, and Tarek stood at the Giza obelisk, surrounded by the most advanced Earth-built technology they could assemble in the short time. "Do you think they'll even understand us?" Tarek asked as the obelisk began to hum. "They understood enough to say peace," Layla replied. "That's a start." Kale placed his hand on the obelisk, letting it resonate with his shard. Together, the team sent Earth's reply, "We are Earth. We wish to speak." 2 days later, a single Senari vessel descended through Earth's atmosphere, landing in the vast plains of Mongolia, near the obelisk where the Guardians had first appeared. The Senari envoy emerged, 3 beings tall and luminous, their crystalline forms refracting light into cascading rainbows. They did not walk but glided, their movements impossibly smooth. The delegation from Earth approached cautiously, led by Layla and Kale. The Senari emitted a soft hum, and once again, their message was felt more than heard. "You have touched the beacons of the ancient path. We recognize your world as a seed of great potential. But the path you choose is your own." Over the following days, the Senari shared fragments of their knowledge. They explained the purpose of the obelisk network, built eons ago by an alliance of civilizations to maintain galactic balance. "You are inheritors," the Senari explained. "The Watchers and Harvesters have strayed, each pursuing their own ideals of balance. But the choice is yours, guardianship or conquest." They provided no weapons or advanced technologies but left humanity with a map, a star chart filled with markers of other connected civilizations. "Others will come," the Senari warned before their departure. "Some to aid, others to challenge. Choose your allies wisely." The Senari's departure left Earth in turmoil. The star chart became a source of contention, with nations vying for control of its secrets. Layla's team urged unity. "This map isn't a treasure," she argued at the UN. "It's a responsibility. If we approach it with greed, we'll invite destruction." But not everyone listened. Rogue factions began sending probes to the nearest star systems, hoping to claim resources and power before others could. One night, as Layla worked in the lab, the shard on her desk began to glow again. The Guardian's voice echoed in her mind. "The balance wavers. Prepare or your world will fall." Layla felt a chill. The Guardian's tone was graver than before. The obelisk network, while active, was not invincible. If humanity didn't unite, the next visitors might not offer peace. As Earth braced for the unknown, Layla and her team took a bold step. They began forming an independent coalition of scientists, thinkers, and diplomats from every nation, those who believed in unity over division. "We can't control the stars," Layla said at their first meeting, "but we can decide how we face them, together." In the depths of the Giza ruins, Layla stared at the activated obelisk. The light within it pulsed faintly, like the heartbeat of something greater. The galaxy awaited, and so did its challenges. Months passed since the Senari left, and the world teetered between cooperation and conflict. Layla Hassan's coalition grew stronger, gaining allies among the world's thinkers, dreamers, and leaders who believed in unity. But with every step forward, there was resistance. Nations and factions still sought to claim the obelisks and the star chart for themselves. Earth's first probes to nearby systems had returned, bringing back reports of barren worlds and strange anomalies. No signs of life, no habitable planets. For now, humanity remained alone in the void. But Layla and her team knew this was only temporary. The obelisk network, now fully operational, emitted a low-frequency hum that could be heard and felt around the world. Kale stood near the Giza obelisk one evening, staring at its glowing glyphs. Layla joined him, her expression heavy with concern. "It's changing," she said, gesturing to the obelisk. The glyphs had begun to shift, forming symbols they had never seen before. "It's a countdown," Kale said after a long pause. Layla frowned. "A countdown to what?" Before he could answer, the obelisk surged with energy, and a new signal erupted across the network. This time, the message was not from the Senari. "We are the Dominion. Surrender the beacons or face annihilation." Earth's leaders convened immediately, their fears now realized. The star chart, which they had hoped would guide humanity to allies, had also revealed Earth's position to new enemies. The Dominion's message came with a projection of their fleet, an armada far larger and more advanced than anything Earth had faced before. Their ships were black as the void, bristling with weaponry, and their intent was clear: conquest. Kale studied the transmission, his face grim. "They're drawn to the obelisk's energy. They'll strip Earth bare for its resources and leave nothing behind." Michael slammed his fist on the table. "We don't have the firepower to fight something like this." Layla's voice cut through the tension. "Then we find another way. The Senari told us the obelisks are part of a network. There has to be a way to use them to protect Earth." The team scrambled to decipher the Guardian's cryptic warnings and the glyphs on the obelisks. Layla led the effort at Giza, while Tarek coordinated with teams at the other sites. The Senari had left clues in the form of dormant nodes buried deep beneath the obelisks. "We can amplify the obelisk's energy," Tarek said during a video call. "Create a shield, maybe even disrupt the Dominion's ships." "But at what cost?" Michael asked. "If we overload the network, it could destroy the obelisks entirely." Kale nodded. "And if we do nothing, the Dominion will destroy us. It's a risk we have to take." The Dominion fleet entered the solar system, their ships eclipsing the stars as they advanced toward Earth. Humanity's makeshift defenses, a coalition of military forces and hastily constructed orbital weapons, stood no chance against the oncoming storm. But Layla's team worked relentlessly. At the Giza obelisk, they activated the network central node, sending pulses of energy to the other sites. The obelisks glowed brighter than ever, their light cutting through the night sky. As the Dominion ships neared Earth, the obelisks released a massive wave of energy, forming a shimmering barrier around the planet. Dominion ships that touched the barrier disintegrated instantly, their technology no match for the obelisk's ancient power. As the barrier held, the Giza obelisk emitted a new signal. The Guardian appeared once more, its form brighter and more solid than before. "You have done well," it said, "but the balance remains fragile. The Dominion will not be the last to challenge you." Layla stepped forward. "Then teach us. Help us protect ourselves." The Guardian hesitated, its light dimming slightly. "The knowledge you seek comes with great responsibility. Misuse it, and you risk becoming what you fear." "We understand the risks," Kale said firmly. "But we can't remain defenseless." The Guardian studied them for a long moment before speaking. "Very well. We will guide you, but only as long as you remain worthy." With the Guardian's help, Earth began to unlock the deeper secrets of the obelisk network. The star chart was no longer just a map. It became a guide to forming alliances with other civilizations. Layla's coalition expanded, uniting nations under a common goal: survival and exploration. Humanity was no longer alone, no longer isolated. But the warnings of the Senari and the Guardians lingered in their minds. For every ally they found, there would be an enemy. For every step forward, there would be new challenges. Layla stood atop the Giza obelisk one final time, gazing at the stars. The network pulsed beneath her feet, a reminder of the power and responsibility her team had unlocked. "This isn't the end," she whispered. "It's just the beginning."